we'd like to go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Beard, and then state opening prayer. We'll go ahead and have Todd Leaders take care of that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father, thank you so much for all of that, of course. Thank you for this beautiful valley that we live in, for the opportunities which we have to serve and to be able to be neighbors, to be able to serve those in this community. Father, we're grateful for all the things that was blessed us with. We're grateful for the moisture which we have received, and we plead with you to give us the moisture which we need to move forward. Father, we'd ask you to guide us and direct us as we discuss the use and as we go forward. Father, we ask, we pray for these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, and welcome to all. Appreciate everybody coming in tonight, and those that are on YouTube as well. We're going to go ahead and start with our approval of the agenda order. And so, Chuck, I see you on the screen there. So you'll just have to raise your hand high if it's a yes. Shake your head no, keep your hand down if it's a no.
Can you hear Chuck? Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Okay, and then our city manager, Afton, is on the screen as well, and Darren is also our city engineer.
I think, Gary, if you would just let the citizens know why they're not here.
They are attending a meeting of
Utah Leagues and Cities and Towns.
The annual conference.
the annual conference of Utah City, Utah League. So that's why they had a full day up there today, and now they don't have a chance to go out to dinner until this meeting's over. Okay, so I'm looking for an approval on the agenda order.
I would move that we approve the agenda order.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And do we have any disclosures, declarations of conflict from city members and city council members who are made?
Councilmember Chaves, I have a conflict in that one of the items on the agenda is the nightly rental development ordinance. And although it applies to all the city, there is a pending application for the ability to do a nightly rental development by firelight, which is a client of mine.
Portion of the meeting, then we got conflict counsel Bruce Jenkins here to take care of that as well. I also would like to make a declaration that I do own a vacation rental in the city. So I don't think there's a big problem with it, but I'm just disclosing it. Now I'm looking for review and approval of the minutes, the meeting minutes. There were several dates here. September 7th, September 9th, September 13th, September 16th, September 21st. And August 25th, thank you. The only correction I noticed was on September 21 that the members that were present is not accurate. And if you could just go back to the minutes and correct that. Otherwise, I'm looking for the motion.
I would approve the consent agenda with the modifications specified by Councilman Chaves.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chuck, you gotta raise your hand. We can't see your hand, so use that hand. I can see that one. Okay.
Aye.
City Department reports. We have Ash Creek Special Service District here.
To report, to work on the bypass. I'm working through some supply chain issues we're having with manholes out there, and so it's progressing slowly, but it is progressing, and that's about all I have.
application?
It is also a slow process. So Armor Rock is the one doing the wet well on that, and that's what we're waiting for at this point. So we're waiting for them to get the wet well built before they can move forward on that. So hopefully soon.
Okay. Second report is from the fire district, who is absent, but I do have a document here in my hands that said there were 15 calls in the month of September. I think that's lower than normal. Medical transports, there were 6. Medical refusals, there were 7. CPTA 1 and fire calls 1. So that's good news. Next, we'll go to Joey Campbell from the Planning Commission.
The only thing I got is it looks like we have a couple more conceptual or preliminary site plans for commercial applications that are coming up. That's about the only thing I think is on our agenda for next week. But that's it.
Okay, thank you, Joey. So we'll go ahead and put her comment. And Attorney Snow.
Just one thing I think the council should be advised of. Last month, we had a presentation by InfoWest about their desire to obtain a franchise agreement with the city. I think they would like to not only be with their fiber optic conduit along the new parkway, but they've proposed to build out through the entire city, which is a little different than what we had. I was contacted today and provided with a draft copy of a franchise agreement and indicated to the President InfoWest they would like to proceed forward. They feel like they have secured their funding and they wanted to know the next steps. So I indicated review their proposed franchise agreement, let the council look at it, make a decision there. There may need to be some modifications to it. We just want to make sure that we're not asking for anything more or anything less than what we require already of CenturyLink and PBS, who have franchise agreements with the city. It's slightly different in that they're the type of, it's the same service, but it's through, obviously fiber optic network. But yeah, I thought that was a nice thing that we may very well be getting fiber to the city.
Good news.
Meeting that they were at, I was there, but they were wanting.
Yeah, yes, and that's, and my quick review of the franchise agreement that was sent over, it was rather long, but it didn't have a limitation on their responsibilities to build out. So it is throughout the city. So they're following through with what they presented to council.
Thank you. We move on to the public forum. As we mentioned last week, Daisy's got a timer. I think you have it displayed on the screen as well, Daisy, or not?
We've
Okay.
had that last time. She just,
Fine.
she had.
Gary?
Yes. Who called my name?
Afton.
I did. Gary, we just report on the next city council meeting since I'm out of town.
I'm sorry?
We just need to note that I'm not going to do a report until the next city council meeting.
Okay.
We got that.
She just wanted you to note to the public that she's not going to do a report today.
Which you
Not
did.
totally.
Okay, I thought I did that already, but anyway. Y'all hear that? Report and give us an update at the next city council meeting. Thank you. So as far as the public forum goes, anything that is not on the agenda is up for grabs. Limit your comments to 3 minutes or 1 minute if that's all you need. And we'll go ahead and open that up at this point in time.
No, first, Jake.
You got a microphone though. Thanks, Jake. We're on. Yeah, we're on. So Greg Turner, 263 Toker Boulevard. Just want to thank the city for what they've done in the past with the shredding, taking the compostable material, trees and limbs and stuff down to the city park and having coordinate with the fire department to shred that. That would be appreciated.
Jake Peart, 1661 South Chaparral Drive. I love the comments from last meeting with InfoWest and the appreciation that everyone had to have competition with InfoWest and TDS and all those people, because it brings better service to all of us citizens. And that pertain, I'm always a component of free markets, and that's a huge part of free markets. There was years ago, everybody had farms in this area and everybody had farms throughout Utah, and that's what everybody demanded and needed for their land. That was the best and the highest use of land. Today, I wonder what those uses are, and I hope that we consider free market and not limiting people's ability to do what they need to do with their property.
Kathy Bentz, 370 West Shangri-La. And I'm sorry, there were such positive things said. And I, of course, have to be the downer person here to bring up the Salt Lake Tribune article that was yesterday. This is the third article about Talkerville, and I wanted to read them. And one of them this is talking about the ARC, which fortunately that seems to be a bullet that we dodged. But it says, nor, the ex-mayor added, did he step down as a result of his divulging to council members at the meeting that he had a consulting contract with the would-be developers, which posed a conflict of interest. He said city staff and the council already knew about that. So that was my first concern, was that paragraph. The next one that was a big concern was it said, since it was private land separate from the 607 acres of public land the city was trying to acquire from the BLM for the sports park and did not involve Talkerville, he explained, City Attorney Heath Snow told him he did not need to supply a separate, more detailed statement. So my concern with this is that I want to know that everybody here was not in on someone making money off of developers. It was the same developer on the private land, on the public land, the BLM land, on the 200 acres of private land, same developer. And I think that it's really important that we are able to put our trust in all of you. And so I want to encourage someone, all of you from the city, to give us a fourth story. I don't like the Salt Lake Tribune. I hate to give them all this business, but I think we need a fourth story that restores our confidence in our city government. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Once again, I'm sorry. I noticed that.
Yeah, you missed your chance. I promise you. Stacy Eaton, 290 South Ash Creek Drive. My comments are, I'm kind of torn about this, and I've wanted to come up and talk about this for quite some time with the city council, and I've kind of pushed it off, and I feel like I can't do that anymore. First, let me say that our former mayor, I think he's a great guy. I consider him a friend. Maybe there was some poor decision makings. Maybe there was some poor advice. I don't know, but I'm certainly willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. And I think he's being probably treated a little bit misfairly. That being said, I do think this is a time, the perfect time for the city council to clean some house. And what I'm referring to is no. Through the whole process of the leading up to the bypass road building, Councilman Snow was apparently representing a major landowner. The benefit greatly, they could not have built their development without the bypass road. At the same time, he's pushing the city to force condemnation or the threat of condemnation through that And apparently Mr. Snow did not disclose that to the city. I've spoken to Mr. Snow about this, and he says that he disclosed to the city when he was hired on 13 years plus, whatever it was, that he had a client that he would not give up. None of you guys, and nobody on the city council at the time was here on the city council when Mr. Snow disclosed that. Beginning of each council meeting, it is stated, is there ever a conflict? If there is, disclose it. It wasn't disclosed. And from everything that I can see, it wasn't disclosed until it got caught. So when I watch a city council meeting, I'm sitting there looking at it and going, wait a minute, the words that are coming out of Mr. Snow, and I really do like you. I think you're a great guy. I just think there's a conflict here. I sit and I think, I can't tell who he's representing at this very moment. Is he talking about the city? Is he talking about the developer? Is he talking for the developer? You can't tell. Some very wise person said you can't serve two masters. How in the world can the city know when, first of all, he went forever without disclosing his conflict, and you just can't tell who he's representing. I'm hoping that whoever the new mayor is, whoever that is, has the courage to terminate that contract. Thank you.
Claudia Young, 1195 South Westfield Road. Just as a follow-up to the last two speakers, I think we all know that politics has gotten a very bad name in our nation, somewhat in our state, and I would hope that the city council at this time would take the opportunity to make sure that they prove to the citizens of Talkerville that they are not an old boys network, excuse me, Rachel, but that they would look outside the council to appoint the new mayor so that people would have confidence that some of the past suspicions, et cetera, would not be carried forward. Thank you.
Sandy Cordova, 275 North Toker Boulevard. And I would just like to echo what Stacy said as far as Councilman Snow. This is not only going to be an issue, has been an issue, but it will continue to be an issue for as long as Firelight is part of Talkerville. And I'd also like to urge City Council to not move forward with the nightly rental ordinance change and do what our Planning Commission has suggested. Thank you.
Daisy. Hey, as we're going forward, the last two, we've got to keep in mind this has to be about things that are not on the agenda. Both the upcoming mayor is on the agenda and also the nightly rental ordinance.
Heath, just to clarify the record, maybe, it's not Councilman Snow, right?
Last time I checked, I may have been.
I'm assuming those people that refer to Mr. Snow as Councilman Snow meant City Attorney Snow.
Oh, did I say that?
Yes.
Let me correct that.
You did,
Sorry.
and the comment that followed you said the same thing, and so I just for the record, wanted to know.
Okay, and
Make that one clear.
the comment by our city manager is that comments related to an item that's on the agenda need not be brought up during the public forum related to the mayor or related to the nightly rental. Did
Say
that
go. Wayne Olson, Talkerville, 160 West. I'm gonna have a hard time with this because I'm on the planning commission. But being on the planning commission and trying to solve through this problem, to me, when you have a conflict of interest, like you have a conflict, there's no way to get around it. So in my position, I'm trying to understand if he's working for them or us when I'm trying to make a decision on something I don't know a whole lot about yet, MPOs and all that stuff. So I just dislike the fact that we have Attorney Snow in his position at this present time with Firelight and this giant development you got going on. And I believe hasn't been some things that's been disclosed, and there's some complicity going on here, that now is the time to come clean with it. With a new council, these people are asking for this security to know that everything's all right. I believe there's some culpability there. When you have a disclosed, let's take yours, you disclosed a, whatever you call it now. Yeah. In ethical, and I'm not sure by law, you have no right to vote or really even have a discussion on that. So I think maybe the conflict of interest things needs to look at a little deeper so we can get a better feel, because I'm not going to be complicit in anything. So from this point forward, I don't know who to trust when I'm asking. I have to trust my staff, but when the attorney chimes in, I can't trust it. I don't want to trust it because you can't serve two masters. It's impossible because you have to be conflicted. And I appreciate and I respect you, but that's just my opinion. And for me, it would help out. Thank you.
Okay, I'll try and be real short. I think none of us know the real story. Dan Catlin, 821 South Peachtree, about what occurred with our previous mayor. And I think some of us are making assumptions, right or wrong. I think we should get one lessons learned out of this, and one I was pushed with state government, is it's not only if you do something wrong, it's giving the impression that you're doing something wrong. The image is as bad as what actually occurs. So if nothing else, we get out of all this mess that's gone on, is you're a lot safer to over disclose than under disclose. So if there's could be any question, put it out there and put it out to the citizens, not just to the city staff. Thank you.
Anyone else? We set a record tonight.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. We're ready to move on, and we're going to our business section of the agenda. The first item on that section is interviewing candidates to fill the vacancy of the Talkerville City Mayor. What I'd like to do is have the 4 candidates that have submitted an application take the front row up here. So, thank you guys. And then, well,
You want to set them in order too, so they can just pass the mic.
they're going to be
Corey Turner.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was just so that we could pass the mic a little easier, but we can make it work.
So just move Corey and that way they can go down and it's down.
You want to?
So you all sat so well, but we're going to move you around in the order that you applied, and that way you can just pass the mic down. So Corey applied first, then it was, I know, I'm trying to make it easy. Then Justin, then DC, then Dan. So we could just go, and that way that can just, we're trying to.
We can just pass.
Yeah, so then Justin gets to be the runner. Yeah.
Gary and Rachel, I would tell you that the statute indicates that we're to interview each candidate in open meeting. So I think what would be best, instead of like asking the same question to everybody in a row, like a panel format, that it ought to be more like an interview. And so everyone asks their question to each candidate.
Okay.
All at one time, then we move to the
Exactly.
next candidate.
To me, that's your
We
personal
need them to-
choice. If you would rather
Yeah, we
stand
need
at
them
the.
to step up. Rachel, Justin
one
sits
person
entirely.
and then
I
the
like it right now.
Correct.
Do you? I'm
Have Corey
sorry,
come
you
up to the
guys.
microphone.
And I think I get to start with the first question. We kind of worked through straws a little bit. Or do you
So
want
Rachel, I just, the only thing I would say is we might want to ask them to introduce themselves before we
Yeah,
start.
that would be perfect.
My name is Corey Turner. I live at 728 South Westfield. I've been here almost nearly 2 years. Moved up here from Vegas because I don't like politics in Vegas. To be quite honest, that's 100% why we moved. And we got an opportunity to live the ranch life and the simple life and the slow life. And that's what we came up here to do. And yeah, so I've enjoyed the last 2 years, and I've really tried to ingrain myself in the community by trying to join the city council. I helped with DC last year with the Halloween thing, so trying to do my part around this community as well as be a leader and an advocate. So that is why I'm applying.
Okay. All right. My question is, why do you believe you're qualified to be mayor, and what experience, if any, have you had at the local government?
I don't have any experience at the local government, which probably makes me the most qualified person. The politics is civic duty. It is for the people, by the people. And I believe that. I don't have any interest to be a politician, but I have an interest to be a leader. And that's what I've been through my entire career as adult and child. From sports, being captains on teams, even to where I'm at now as a captain of the fire department, which I started as a reserve. I went from reserve to part-time to full-time to captain within 6 months. Because that's the type of person I am, and that's the drive that I have. In my last position, I was the marketing manager for Tao Group Hospitality, which is now the largest hospitality group in the world after taking over Hakkasan Group. And I was their liaison for the entire West Coast, as well as help with special projects on the East Coast. So I know how to manage things. I know how to manage budgets. I know how to manage people most. And that's what this job is. It's representing the community, the people, and the best interest of the city. And that's
So,
No, one person at a time, yeah.
okay, so then I've got 3 issues here. So first thing, what are your top 3 issues you see facing Talkerville? Probably go with that one first.
I feel like we've hit it already. One of the things is conflict of interest. That was actually one of my talking points when I applied for city council, was conflict of interest. Transparency and community involvement. Transparency sometimes gets a little sketchy when it's put out through the channels that it's put out. So getting ahead of all the rumor mills is a good tactic. And communication, it's one of the most important parts of a working environment is being able to communicate properly. And I would like to try to come in and resolve these issues.
And then the next 3 are going to be goals for Talkerville.
My goal for Talkerville would be to make it a flourishing city. We are a city, but there are some things that we lack. And with that comes growth. And I know nobody wants to, that's a taboo word right now, but it can be mitigated properly. It could be done smart and through the right and proper communication and channels, we could grow it exponentially, but still keep this small town feel. There's a way to do it. And really that would be the main goal, because that's everyone's main concern is the growth and to mitigate it and make it as slow as it can be without harming the future of the city.
I think you're up, Gary.
Okay. How many city council and planning commission meetings have you attended this year?
This year, none. My wife and my daughter have been barrel racing, and sometimes it falls on Wednesday night. And to be quite honest, the city council just wasn't a priority. My family was, because that's just the type of person I am. But this being on the agenda, this would be a priority because this is something I'd be committing myself to. So my family understands that. I've already had that communication with my wife and my daughter that this may happen or may not happen. It's fine. I'm fine either way. But we've all made a commitment as a family to, if this happens, then we'll pursue it.
Thank you. And then I know you mentioned one item, but tell me about the items that you volunteered for community service or for the city so far this year.
So far this year, I haven't done anything. Again, just time restraints. But last year, I did help with the stuff at the chili cook-off. Disaster or meetings. I did go one of those. The other ones fell on nights where I was just at the station. And during the summer, it's busy. So I wasn't able to break away. But again, I'm here because I'm willing to make a commitment. So given that it goes forward, then I'd be making that commitment.
Okay, and I believe Chuck?
Right, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
What would you consider your greatest achievement in life?
Becoming a better man. That has been my goal for a very long time. I was not raised in a very structured home. I had a stereotypical father, abusive and all those things, and I could have went a whole different way in life. But I've become the type of person that my wife loves dearly and that people look up to me. And I have a network of friends and family that reach out to me for advice. And that's been my biggest achievement, is being the person that someone calls when they're in trouble.
Thank you. Why appoint you versus the other candidates that you're sitting with?
I'm sorry, one time?
Why appoint you as the mayor over the other candidate that you are currently sitting with?
As I stated before, I'm only here for 2 years. So I'm an outside. I have an outside point of view, and that is not a bad thing. That is a good thing. Sometimes you get blinders on, and when everyone has the same vision, there's no vision. Not saying that any of these guys, these gentlemen, I know some of them personally. I've talked to them outside of this room. I'm not saying that their vision is small, but I'm saying I look at it a different way. And I could bring an aspect that may or may not be different. And if it doesn't work, it's only for a year.
You might be better looking than the rest.
That is up for debate. That's up for debate.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all we have. Anything else? Okay.
All right.
So-
Well, I appreciate you guys for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
I failed to mention, and Corey did a good job of limiting his answers to under 2 minutes. So if you only need 30 seconds, fine, but you can take up to 2 minutes.
Each answer.
Oh, they were being timed? Okay. Thank you.
2 minutes. We'll keep it short. So I'm Justin Sipp. I moved to Talkerville in 1985. I moved away for a few years and back. I live on 152 West Sunset Avenue. I'm a business owner in town. I've been here for a long time and I understand what's going on in the city. So I'm ready to ask any more questions than that. Let's go ahead and start. That's kind of my introduction. So.
Okay, why do you feel like you're qualified to be a mayor? I'll just give it to you all at the same time. And what experience have you had at the local level?
So we'll start with the experience on the local level. I've been on the city council for 5 years now. I have filled in for Mayor Chamber on a few times, doing mayor meetings in St. George with other mayors. I know what's going on in the city. I would like to be the mayor because I know what's coming up in the city with the issues with the water, our sewer, our development. And I feel I have a good handle on what needs to be done in those areas. I don't have to play catch up as I feel a new mayor would have to. So.
All right, Justin, 3 issues facing Talkerville and 3 goals you have for Talkerville.
So 3 issues facing Talkerville. First off is growth. We need to manage growth. It's not going to stop. It's going to happen. How we approach it, how we manage to keep old part of town, keep that small town feel, and let the landowners be able to develop their property and do what they see, what they would like to do with their land that falls in with the city ordinances. 3 goals I see for the city. I'd like to see more community activities where the whole community attends. As Corey stated, I think communication is one of the things we need to, a goal that we need to make sure that as we have these activities and these community togetherness, everybody needs to know about it. So that's one thing I believe is critical, and our water situation. To be able to attack our water system with some aggression, how to protect Talkerville City's water, develop more water if we can, and work with the sewer district and the water district to reclaim a lot of the water that we are losing.
Thanks, Justin.
Okay, I guess I should ask how many city council and planning commission you're attending this year. You thought about that?
I don't have a number, so I think I missed 2 city council meetings. I went to few planning commission meetings. I've been all those things and several other mayor meetings. So.
And then what volunteer projects have you worked on so far for the year?
As far as Talkerville as being a city council member, well, we did the fundraiser park about a year ago. A park raiser, that was a lot of work. A lot of service projects around town, whether they're city or church run. I've been to several of those. And honestly, I feel that all the city council is community service. It's not like we're doing this for the money. So.
Okay, Chuck?
Justin, can you hear me?
Sure.
What would you consider your greatest achievement in life?
I would say is my family, my wife, and my children.
Why appoint you as mayor versus the other candidates?
I think all these guys would do a good job. I feel that I have a leg up on the fact that I know what's going on in the city, what direction we're going. I have no ties to any developers or any, the only conflict I have is I run a business in town. I think I'm straightforward and I tell it the way it is. People don't know, but I'm straightforward and honest.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justin.
Do I need to state my name and where I live?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
DC Young, 1195 South Westfield Road. The first thing I need to say is that Mr. Turner did a great job of helping us with last year's chili cook-off, and I expect him to be on the list for this year's Thanksgiving system. But I do have a conflict of interest that I have to disclose. Justin Sipp and I have a joint venture in a trailer that seems like everybody but us uses. That's the only conflict of interest I have. I don't own anything except the property that I live at in Talkerville. I have no business connections in this county. I have no business in the county. I'm here purely as a resident. I've been here since 2007, and I feel that I know a fair amount about how the city works. In 2007, 8, and 9, I worked with the city before they got their city codes online and did a lot of work on the early drafts of the land use ordinance. Was involved with that, and then when it became automated, they didn't need us old manual labor people anymore.
Okay, DC, you're answering some of your questions already.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to have Rachel start.
Okay, Rachel, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut into your train.
I'm good. Why do you feel you're qualified to be a mayor, and what experience have you had with the local government?
Well, from what I know about being mayor, I'm not sure anybody's really qualified to be a mayor, but I think I am as qualified as any of the candidates here in that I have worked in big business. I worked 37 years at Caterpillar and managed $1 million accounts in that program, and survived 37 years without getting fired. I learned a lot of things. I'm an engineer by trade. I have a master's in mechanical engineering. I understand the way politics works, and I understand the way business works. And when you're a city, you have to marry the two. So, next.
Right, DC, my questions are changing. What are the top 3 issues you see facing Talkerville and 3 goals for Talkerville?
The number one ethics we face today is ethics. And it's imperative that we be trusted by the people. I've lived in cities where the people don't trust the city administration, and I've lived in cities where they do. I lived in Talkerville a long time, and I want to be able to trust the administration. Ethics, to me, is the number one thing. The second issue that we're facing, to me, is growth in general. And I include in that the bypass, the water issue, and things like Firelight and those kinds of developments. Managing growth, because the people that are here don't want it, and the people that are coming in need it. And they have a right to use the property they have, and balancing that. And I appreciate the kinds of work that is done on the planning commission. That is the sorting process for that. That's a great organization, and they've done a good job. The third thing I think is important for the city is basically just getting along. It's okay to disagree, but we don't need to be disagreeable in doing so. And we need to learn how to be a community of a variety of individuals with a variety of opinions, and figured out how to walk the middle road on that. And I think that there's a little bit of wisdom that goes into that has to be used by having negotiated with many people in many places. And I've done that. That's my thing.
Your goals?
3 goals. I'd love to see the bypass done. That's been my goal since I moved here. I'm actually the one that proposed the current route, except for the around this side of the reservoir up there. I wanted it to be on the other. That's imperative. I'd like to see our ability to maintain a small town atmosphere, even though we might have a portion of the city that's not a small town anymore. And that can be done. I've seen it done in other places. The third goal would be, I intend to stay here the rest of my life. I've even got my next parking place already laid out. So I'm committed to Talkerville. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Oh, hang on. I forgot my turn and Chuck's turn. How many city council or planning commission meetings have you attended this year?
I'm not sure, but some. And I'm sure that the record can show that I was there. I signed in every time. I don't come to all of them. Some I watched on the tube, but I have been involved.
And community service projects that you've done this year?
This year, well, the last one I recall would have been our fundraiser for the park that has been promised down by my way. That seems to be very, very slowly developing.
And you've been to the meeting this year already for.
Oh, yeah, I got sucked into, I'm sorry, I got volunteered to be part of the planning for 3 events coming up in the future.
And Chuck?
Can you hear me okay, DC?
Good for gold. Gold.
What would you consider your greatest achievement in life?
By far, the greatest achievement I've had was marrying a wife I married up, and I've been able to stay married to her for 54 years. My second greatest achievement would be, in my opinion, finding Talkerville. Because I lived 37 years in other places and didn't ever feel like I was home. And here I feel like I'm home.
Why should we appoint you versus any of the other candidates that you're sitting with?
I have no answer to that. I do not want to stand in judgment of any of these other good gentlemen. I know 2/3 of them really well. I know the third gentleman a little bit. They're all good people. I think that you have a tough decision ahead of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Seems like I just said this. Dan Catlin, 821 South Peachtree. What do you want me to tell you? Yeah, I was a state police officer for 20 years and retired from that. I then went to work for a company that primarily did engineering for the military. But I managed major projects, anywhere the smallest being 7.5 million, the largest being about 200 million euro. I'm a certified public manager, went through the training the state put through. I've worked with government budgets. I've done coordination between police, fire, medical during the I-15 project. Through the project management, through the company with military contractors, dealt with a number of very high-level leaders, both in our country and other countries in which I worked. Yeah.
Ready? Okay. Why do you feel you're qualified to be a mayor, and what have you, your experience with local government?
My experience with the local government here in Talkerville, I worked on the planning commission for just under 2 years, part of that as chairman, until I threw it on to Joey, which I don't think he's forgiven me for. I've been to, well, I don't want to get ahead. I try and attend as many planning commission and city council meetings as I can. One thing I used to always state and will always continue to state when it comes to government is if we don't follow our own rules or our own ordinances, how do we expect our citizens to do so? Which came to a head and was part of the reason I left being the chairman of the planning commission. Yeah.
All right, Dan, 3 issues for Talkerville.
I think the top one on everybody's concerns got to be the growth. And again, water comes along with that. The other piece of that I think we have to manage, unless we want all of our property taxes to go crazy with this growth, is bringing in some commercial into Talkerville, but being very selective on what commercial we do bring in and manage where that commercial is going to be. I have a big concern about the large developers coming in and us bending our ordinances or changing our ordinances to meet the needs of the developer rather than having the developer change the way they're going to do business to live within the ordinances of Talkerville. Whatever we change now, we're going to live with because we're going to set a precedent, which I'm not sure on some of them that we're reviewing is that we're going to be setting a good precedent. And I don't want to see that happen, to be quite honest. The other big thing for me is keeping the main body of Talkerville where we all live and the reason we moved here the way it is. Keep as much active farmland as we can. But also don't impact a developer because they're building, which I think we've been seeing about talking about putting up walls. I personally enjoy living across the gorge from a farm. My wife talks to the cows. Why they talk back, I don't know. But that's the reason we moved here, and I'd like to try and keep that.
So that maybe blended into 3 goals that you have so far, just one of them being that keep the small town feel.
Yeah.
What would be some others, if that's one of them?
That is, yeah, thanks for answering that one for me. I was going to get tough on that one. No, we all moved here for a reason, I think, and that was for the small town feel. And I've never felt a sense of community anywhere I've lived in the world compared to what I do in Talkerville. from from helping other people move in to don't mention that you need anything because somebody's going to come and help you. And I truly enjoy that. So.
Thank you, Dan.
So Dan, you already mentioned that you attend as many planning commissions that, and city council meetings that you can, but have you volunteered to provide community service to the city so far this year?
I think we can go back to the fundraiser for the park. I worked on the chili cook-off doing that. That's the two we brought up. I worked on several where we've done service projects at people's homes, cleaning their yards. I helped a number of, after being notified by Mr. Young, helped a number of people move in when they're first getting here. So, and then volunteered anytime I felt I could be of use.
Chuck, are you ready?
I am ready. Can you hear me okay, Dan?
I can.
What would you consider your greatest achievement in life?
I ain't getting my kids to maturity, having them bear my grandkids. That to me is the biggest thing anybody can do is raise a family, and no matter how much you feel like you should kill them while they're growing, that you let them survive and prosper and give you grandchildren. So that's probably my number one. How am to start all of that, I stalked my wife long enough to get her to marry me, which why she stayed with me 42 years, I still don't know. So.
Well, why appoint you versus any of the other candidates?
I don't think you're going to go wrong with any of the four, to be honest with you. I'm kind of feel I'm in Justin's league on knowing what's going on in the city, having helped draft and modify some of the ordinances, getting ready for the developments coming in. I think I've attended enough meetings. I've stayed up on what's going on in the city. I don't know the inner workings of what's gone on in the city. But I think I'm fairly well prepared to come in. I've had experience in government and managing employees in the government.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
Yeah. The applause was for Justin's birthday today. I hope it's just a coincidence that we're interviewing on Justin's birthday. Is that unfair? Absolutely.
Okay.
Happy birthday, Sandy. What year?
I'm not going to tell you. I am not ready for me.
Okay, I think I've lost control. It's over. All right. We are now going to move on to discussion and possible action to appoint an interim city mayor. And I'd like the city attorney first to describe how the process is going to work with the interim stage, the next election time, and the one after that. If you could do that, please.
You bet. Because of our prior mayor, the vacancy that we have and the shortness of his term, this would be considered an interim vacancy. And what that means is that the appointment will be until the next interim election. And so the person who is appointed tonight by the council will serve for a year and 4 or 5 months. And at that point in time, they can declare their candidacy and run for election. But they will be, at that point in time, the election will be to seat a new mayor for a 4-year term. So the position of appointment tonight is for interim mayor. Gary is our temporary, he is our alternate mayor pro tem, because Justin is one of the persons who submitted his letter of interest to be it. We thought it'd be best to have Gary chair the meeting. Justin has been our mayor pro tem or acting mayor while there's been this vacancy. So I think the process tonight will be that you guys can have any discussion that you'd like, but there would need to be a motion and a second, and then you take a vote on that. Where we have, I mean, it's a little bit of a situation, but we've got Chuck here that's present, and under our electronic meetings ordinance and under the act that the state legislature passed, he can vote tonight. If for some reason we were to be a split vote on something, then Justin would have to vote to break that tie. So I throw that out there. So let's just say, don't split on.
You still can vote.
So there's such things as legal conflicts of interest. Okay, let's make sure.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're open for discussion, and Chuck, you just need to chime in. Just jump in, and so that way we can hear you and give you a voice as well. All right?
Okay.
Lead off.
You want me to lead it off?
Sure.
Okay, we need to make a decision for, I would think that we should just get it out, discuss it, and act upon it tonight, because it's no sense prolonging this thing. So if we can, if we need to take 3 hours talking about it, then let's do what we need to do to figure out what we want to do. What makes it hard is we had these interviews were 3 outstanding interviews. We had some wonderful responses.
Four, yeah,
I'm
four.
sorry, 3. I'm sorry, Dan. I already.
We moved, I know. What makes you think you're the one that he didn't get?
Take long. Sorry. Didn't take long for me to mess up.
Before we can do anything, we have to have a motion, and then we have a discussion. Not the discussion before the motion.
We can discuss first, have a motion, and have a discussion.
No, you
on that
cannot.
motion.
Not under Robert's Rules of Order. You cannot do that.
Attorney?
You can do both, but it's fine.
We can do both?
You can do both. You can have a discussion. But again, the purpose, under Robert's rules, why there would be a discussion beforehand, in a situation like this, it's, you can do both. You can discuss beforehand, but Chuck's right in the sense that if you're going under a pure Robert's rule, there would be the discussion after a motion is made for a single appointment.
Okay. Do you want to, I'm going to ask the other council members which way they'd like to go. You want discussion, or you want a motion?
Well, I think I would prefer some discussion, just as we're trying to, I mean, part of what's going on here is if you make a motion, you've brought somebody's name forward, and then we're going to hash over a person. Like, I think it would be wise to kind of work through these and
clearly under our rules of procedure as a council that we agree that we're following a modified version of Robert's rules. And so we modify it to the needs of the city. We generally can defer back to Robert's rules. And so, you know, in this type of situation, I agree with Ty, why you would have a discussion before this, pros and cons.
so I would, I mean, I'm not going to go into a discussion. First off, I'd just like to thank those 4 candidates. Quite frankly, it's really awesome to have a sheet of wonderful things that have been shared, and you guys volunteered to do that. I appreciate your willingness to do that and your willingness to serve, whether you're appointed or not. The things that are on my mind as I go through this, there's obviously a lot of items in here. I don't think there's maybe anybody more qualified than another, quite frankly. I have some reservations about appointing somebody who's not been involved, just with the fact of trying to work through how we get moving forward. We have huge issues in front of us. We have reuse water. We have a pipeline from the new treatment facility coming back up into the reservoir. We have water agreements to get taken care of. Like, there's a lot, and the mayor is going to be involved with all those items. and they're all going to come to head within the next year, hopefully within the next year and a half. There'll be major items that need to be worked through. And I think there's a lot of expertise that are in this list. So thank you guys for being willing to put your name in.
I appreciate that as well, but I also came in with no background in, it is baptism by fire, but it can be done.
Yes.
That's right.
Absolutely.
It's, and I appreciate, all of you, I know all of you. You're all outstanding men, and deciding the right fit is not easy because you all have amazing qualifications. So, way more qualified than me.
Chuck, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, if you recognize me and ask me, I will make a motion.
I'll get back to you in a minute.
Oh, he's adamant about.
There's one thing that concerns me is a desire from the public for a clean house. I kind of feel like we've been lumped in with a Tribune article, let's say, and that anybody that, and I'm specifically speaking about Justin right now, he's on the city council, and I don't feel like if he is selected, that it's because he's part of this group of council people, city government people that are, in terms, using the word corrupt the way we've been using it, and unethical the way we've been using it. If there's something that one person may have been involved in, it does not mean that everyone's been involved in it. And I personally need to say that. I've lost a lot of sleep over this. I lost a lot of sleep over the fact that I was elected, and then all of a sudden I'm distrusted, and I need to go. We need to have outside people. So with that in mind, I just want to say that I don't think that Justin should be eliminated based upon the fact that there's this idea that we have a corrupt government here in this city. We have a lot of people that work very, very hard, spend a lot of time, and so I would like to make that point clear. The second thing, I'm with Ty. We are in probably one of the busiest and most important years of our time here in Talkerville. And there is so much going on. And as Rachel pointed out, it doesn't happen overnight. When she started on the city council, I think it took her maybe 4 meetings before she opened her mouth. So, and I'm saying that because I think that my personal opinion is I think that Justin's already in the mix. He knows what's going on, especially with the sewer and with the water. He has that down, and he has the bypass down to a certain degree. Ty, of course, is the expert on the bypass. So I just, I feel like in the interim that Justin would be the most experienced person to walk in and take over immediately. And in a year from now, if you don't like what you see, then you heard from 3 other great candidates that hopefully and probably will run for mayor. So with that being said, if you want to make a motion, Chuck, you're welcome to do so. Are there any other comments?
I would love to wait, Chuck, 2 seconds. Like, just coming in, I had no clue what about the boards and things like that, and what the mayor sits on and what some council members sit on, and learning a lot about that. I also feel that Justin has a rapport with some of these men that coming in the position we're at right now. I believe all of you, to be honest. I know you all. I have had conversations. I truly feel that way about all you. I just also feel that as positions and what we need to get moved. Justin is sitting there with men that we are dealing with. So go ahead, Chuck, sorry.
Okay. I move that we appoint as interim Talkerville City Mayor Justin Sipp.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 So
Now you get to do all this again to get a council.
Just for process, do we need to advertise for councilmen?
Yeah, can we have a brief discussion about that? So with the appointment of Justin as mayor, I've thought about this. It's the same essential process in Utah code for filling an interim vacancy or a vacancy on the council or a mayor. So we need to advertise for no less than 2 weeks in advance of a meeting. Anyone can submit a letter of interest to be a council member because we now have a vacancy on the city council. And then we will need to go through the exact same process of appointing a new council member.
So can we, you say how many
I
days?
don't think we can get that accomplished by,
November.
by our.
Yeah, it will be at the first city council meeting next month. It won't be at the one on the 19th. It'll be at the first one in November.
So recognize with the city mayor, Justin can vote to break ties, which we have the possibility of having when we only have 4 council members.
So Daisy, will you put that on your to-do list?
Attorney Snow, what was the term you put out? Excuse me? Justin, your term.
Yeah, I just started, so it'd probably be
Yeah,
the same.
it is the exact same. It is an interim vacancy. And so they would be appointed to fulfill through the interim election. So they would run for election in the fall of 2003 and be put into office.
I don't think that, because then we would have.
Yeah, January 2024.
We have-
Then it's only a 2-year if you get elected.
Okay, that's what, okay, got it.
Yeah,
It
it's
says in our
January
numbers will be off.
2024.
Okay. Got it.
And then the next thing that we would have to clarify is just that Gary was put in as our alternate pro tem. And so he would need to be pro tem, but we can do that on the 17th, or if somebody else from council is nominated to be, but on the 17th or the 19th,
So
sorry,
we have
the next city
no
council
acting
meeting, we'll
mayor
have to
or
put in a
mayor
pro tem.
We have an alternate mayor pro tem, which we can still
Right.
continue to do. At our next meeting, it needs to be an item on the agenda, and you guys need to discuss as a
Right.
board, make a motion to appoint a mayor pro tem and an alternate mayor pro tem.
And
because he was our mayor.
And we need to swear him in.
We do need to swear.
Right.
him in, and let's do that. Are we capable of doing that right now, Daisy? Or do you have the oath of office?
No,
I think.
no, we'll do that on the
Okay,
17th
let's do it
with
at
the
the
pro
next
tem.
meeting.
Or the 19th, sorry. The next city council meeting,
Yeah.
we'll do pro tem and we'll choose a city council member.
And
At
swear
the
Justin
first one in
in.
November.
Yeah,
Yep.
and swear Justin.
We'll handle the mayor's stuff at the next city council meeting, and then we'll handle city council, filling the vacancy in council on the first meeting in November.
Okay. And Justin, you cannot change your mind between now and this point.
That's why I said do it sooner before he realizes what he's got himself into.
So really, the rest of this meeting should be yours.
Yeah. But there's no conflict when you're the mayor pro tem.
Out of those 3 candidates, will run for city council.
Yes.
Bug over there with you, Gary. Gotta have that. Gotta have my liquid courage.
Well, it is your birthday, so.
Yeah, I'm barely 21. Just kidding, guys. There's no alcohol in here. So I'd like to appreciate everybody for the confidence in me, first off.
I hope I will serve the best of my ability, and I hope I stand up to everybody's goals for me. All right, so I guess we're moving on to the next agenda item. I think we're done with everything up to
F3.
Number 3. Discuss it and possible action on amending the nightly rental ordinance to establish conditions of commercial zones.
Mayor, with my conflict, I'll sit down and allow.
Okay, well, you can, all
I'll sit
right.
down.
Yeah. So, I've read this, looked at it, I have questions, I'm sure you guys all have questions, but let's start with Bruce, our conflict counsel.
Okay, so, I'm gonna start a little bit what I'll call ground zero and build up from there and maybe not to disclose the ending at the beginning, but what I'm gonna have to say will probably seem to come a little bit out of left field for everybody that's here, including Heath and Scott. Because of some additional research I've done today, okay? So, let's start from the beginning. The MPDO process has been ongoing for some time before I even.
Mike right there, yep.
Sometime before I was even brought on as conflict counsel. And as part of that MPDO process, it's my understanding that Firelight had, at all times, had part of the concept, a nightly rental component to it. The MPDO ordinance itself allows for a great deal of flexibility and adjustment with respect to city standards and specifications, road width, setbacks, things like that, but does not have that same allowance for uses. The uses are only the uses that are identified in any underlying zone, which the MPDO might then overlay. Did I say that right? It's also my understanding, and part of which I've been a witness to, and part of which I've been told was ongoing even before me, was that Joey, as the planning commission chair, had been raising at least a bit of a red flag saying, wait a sec, guys, we have kind of a weird nightly rental ordinance in town, and I'm not sure this kind of fits with what Firelight's proposing. Is that fair summary, Joey? Yeah. So at some point after I was brought on, and it was a little bit after I was brought on, because it was jump in, throw you into the deep end as soon as I came in. So I attended to what was there at the time. But I did look into Joey's concerns about the existing nightly rental ordinance and the MPD ordinance and how those two might interface. And I came to the conclusion that Joey was entirely correct, that nightly rentals were not a matter of a zone allowed by zone, nor a use allowed in any of the zones, but nightly rentals in this city are controlled by permit. And the limits on those permits, couple those limits. One is that you got to be a resident of the town, which I understand that might get amended, and I understand that Heath has, I would say appropriately so, voiced concern that to limit one's right, a property owner's right to utilize a property to actually physically live in the town is likely not supportable. And so I think that's going to go back and be revisited, that part. The other part is that any single resident can have no more than 2 permits for nightly rentals. That's sort of a tough thing for a developer to do. I mean, how does a developer function with a nightly rental component with 2 permits. You know, they take everybody in this development team and feed them a lot, and they all come in and get 2 permits. You know, it's kind of awkward, okay? So about a month ago, I gave what I call the hard no to Firelight, that under the existing ordinances, the nightly rental component that they were considering wouldn't work. At that point, Heath Snow, on behalf of Firelight, and also knowing well city ordinances, set out at preparing a draft nightly rental development ordinance, one that would not replace the existing nightly rental ordinance, but one that would be in addition to, and govern an entirely different aspect of nightly rentals. If you will, the existing ordinance deals with what I call the onesie-twosie in a residential neighborhood. You know, you might have down the street someone's nightly rental. In a nightly rental development permitted by zone, it would be a little bit different because you have a whole cluster, a whole development. Some might call it a horizontal hotel. You know, things are spread out horizontally as opposed to going vertically. Okay, it's that sort of a concept. Subject to some regulations that, frankly, aren't imposed on the onesie-twosies. And in an area where it would be fair to say that because it got zoned this way, nightly rental, anyone who buys at or around that area would know, I'm buying in a nightly rental development area. That's hard to complain, which is maybe not the case if I lived in Talkerville, and maybe I'd move here. You guys all love it. Anyone selling? You know? Can't get my wife to buy in, but yeah. If a rental pops up next door to me, I might say, I didn't buy on this street to live next to a nightly rental. So those onesie-twosies, I'm not speaking against them, but they have their issue, but they have their place. Okay. So part of the conditions that he proposed in this nightly rental ordinance as a permitted use, allowing nightly rentals as a permitted use with conditions. Not quite the same as a conditional use permit, but it's actually permitted with these specified conditions. Frankly, some of those conditions in that short interim time of spitballing about what to come up with were suggestions from me, not just Heath, just so you know. For an example, the suggestion that the primary access for those nightly rentals, nightly rental development, come off of the parkway was my suggestion, so that this didn't proliferate throughout town and in every commercial area. Now, I'm not telling you I've thought of all the conditions that should be there, but I just want you to know that that's where that one came from, and that's because I'm city council, town council for Rockville, and they limited their nightly rental use off of what is going to be their parkway that goes around the old part of town. You got it. Seems to be a good concept in my mind, and so suggested that. I also suggested, just again, throw out a number, 200, that maybe you don't have a number of nightly rentals in any one spot that exceeds a certain number. And so I threw out 200. Now, that ordinance that he prepared went before the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission made not only a negative recommendation, they didn't make a positive recommendation or a negative one, as I understand it. It just sort of a failed 0-5 against, 0-5 to not recommend. Now, here is, well, and one more set of background, and then I'll get to what what I think is the rub that we all have to face tonight with that. There's two ways that zoning ordinance amendments or new zoning ordinances can come before the city council. One is what I'll call coming up from the planning commission based upon a recommendation, and one that initiates at the city council and goes down to the planning commission, then can come back up from the planning commission to the city council. Heath, anything that I've said that sounds wrong?
No, it's more of a policy directive.
Yeah. Yeah, the policy direction is the city council is saying, hey, planning commission, we think we want to do this with zoning. But they have to go back to the public hearing process of the planning commission. So they send it down for, and when I use these are words from the statute, and this is where the rub comes, the meaning. They send it from the city council down to the planning commission for a recommendation. Now, look up the definition of what a recommendation is. The recommendation can be positive or negative. That can be for or against, really. So when it goes down from the council to the commission, the council essentially said, here's the form of ordinance we want you to consider, commission. Tell us what you think. And then it can come back up, and at that point you can adopt, you can reject the recommendations, or you can adopt with some recommendations or changes. Okay. Now, the language when it comes up from the planning commission, which is what this one did, right? The language of the statute, and I could just about quote it now after looking at it, but I'm just going to read it so that everybody knows. And what I did in looking at this, I also looked at the historical code going back to at least 2014.
Can I just one question?
Yeah,
So,
did I already
no,
confuse you?
you
Because
get,
if
well, I
did,
just
did
want
my
to
job.
run it through in my head. So what I believe planning commission is saying is that it didn't come from us, or they didn't originate it, but it came from Attorney Snow. Is
Well,
that, so
that-
does that play a part of it, or is
uh,
that like,
let-
is that even part?
Yeah, let me debunk
Okay.
that one.
Okay, so yeah, I just wanted to, I'm just
It's a
trying to.
fair question. Because in everything that I've just said, some people here and listening to us might say, well, it didn't come from planning commission or the council. It came from
Yeah, so that's just.
Firelight. It came from Heath Snow.
Which I've heard, so, yeah.
And I don't see it that way. And again, I'm hired, almost. I'm here to look at the town's interests as conflict counsel. Did Heath Snow prepare it? Yes. Did it get presented to the city council, excuse me, the planning commission, to be considered by the planning commission? And did it come from, not the planning commission, but did it come from some other source? It did. But by the fact that the planning commission, in my view, put it on their agenda and took action on it, one way or the other, means that under the state code, because I've only got two ways to look at it from the state code, it really is coming before this body because it came before the planning commission first. And how it got there to the planning commission is, one could debate. Well, the planning commission worked on it over a period of time and they came up with the suggestions and it was their deal. Or they were presented something by any member of the community to look at and review and then pass on. And what they didn't say, and I'm not faulting anybody, I wasn't at that meeting, nor was he at that meeting. What they didn't say is, we haven't ever seen this, we're not going to consider it. They did something close to that. We've never seen this, and we're going to vote all against it. This isn't our thing. So that's how I see it. Yes, there's nothing to hide that the Firelight thought of the ordinance as a way to fix what they perceived as a problem. And so it was then offered as a, if you will, maybe a way to speed up the process. Whether it's ultimately sped it up or slowed it down, will be seen. But I've said my say. Joey, do you want to say something?
I think, so the one thing that I think needs to be really clear is that this was presented to the planning commission. So this was presented to the planning commission as a discussion and action item, and that the applicant requested that we make a recommendation, no table, that night, right? So they wanted a form of action that night. Is that correct? I think that was from you, Scott. So just so for planning commission side, the planning commission would have had discussions and recommendations for the city council, and probably had more discussions on this item in greater detail if we wouldn't have been asked to make the recommendation, if that makes sense, right? So
Maybe restating what you're saying.
Yeah.
You felt like, as the way you were asked by the applicant to act on it, if they didn't leave you the room to make a recommendation.
no, so we made the recommendation based on exactly what's in print, right? So we didn't make we didn't make any recommendation on anything. We just made our recommendation based on not being able to really, well, I shouldn't say that. So we didn't have a lot of discussion. We didn't create the ordinance. We didn't discuss every topic in the ordinance. We were asked to make a motion or a recommendation based on what was in front of us. Right? So.
And one clarification, sure. That firelight is not. You can't apply. You don't. Let's just say you presented it as maybe a jump start to consider this.
It's a grassroots idea, like an initiative,
Right.
but at a local level.
Right.
So when they say applicant requested an action, that wouldn't be their firelight's ability to request that. If there was instruction, and I wasn't there, so I don't know what the instruction was or why the planning felt like they needed to take action.
But, and for me, and it's not being insensitive, I don't know that I care, because what I care about is the process. And what I know without debate is that it came up from the planning commission to the city council. That's what I know. How it got to the planning commission and how they made recommendations, whether they had worked it out or whether someone gave them a jump start as a grassroots, to me, doesn't make any difference with respect to what I'm going to say now. And, so that I don't misquote anything, I'm going to pull up. This is 10-9A 503 of the Utah Code, sometimes referred to as LUDMA or MLUDMA for Municipal Land Use Management Ordinance. And actually, I'm going to look at 502, section 502 first. And this is 502 part 2. It says the legislative body shall consider each proposed land use regulation that the planning to the land use body. Let me stop right there. You shall consider every proposal that the planning commission recommends. I've looked up the definition of what recommends means, and I'm pretty certain what I'm going to say is consistent with what all of you guys would think, and gals including, when I say guys. That's an affirmative recommendation. When you look up, recommend means to say affirmatively something, which is different than the definition of the word recommendation. The code, when it comes from the council down to the commission and then back up, considers recommendations from the planning commission, positive or negative. As I read this, and I would have to say that it's a bit of, even for me, an about face of discussions I've had with Heath. and the way maybe I had viewed this even previously in doing some municipal work, but I want to always be thorough and when I say this, I say it only in terms of, not in terms of a compliment I'm trying to give myself, but I think it can be a pretty quick study of things, that I can see the issues fairly directly. And so when I read this, a legislative body shall consider each proposed land use regulation that the Planning Commission recommends to the legislative body. You didn't get a recommendation. They didn't recommend it to you. And I sorry that I used the recommendation again, because that recommendation word, when it goes from council to commission and back up. But when it comes from commission, if they didn't recommend it, I don't see where you can take action on it. One way or the other. No, because I don't think so, because the history is important for everybody, including Firelight. And I don't think that Firelight did anything wrong. I don't think that they did anything misguided. I don't think, and I would say, I get the optics of things, the optics of here's Firelight, there's Heath. Now here's me. And admittedly, I have not been here all the time. And do I know Darcy Stewart? I do. Do I know Heath? I do. In fact, and I explained this to the council in Afton when I first was asked to be in this job, there was a time years ago I represented Darcy in his interests. Okay? But I don't. I haven't for decades. In fact, I've been adverse to Darcy in his interests. I've represented the other side. Okay? But I haven't seen anything, and I'll make it particular as to this nightly rental development ordinance. I haven't seen anything that I would consider to be unethical about the approach. Untimely, I could say, yeah, I kind of think with the 11th and a half hour, we're trying to deal with this and didn't deal with it when Joey first raised the red flag. Okay. Untimely, perhaps, but we've probably all been guilty of untimely getting to things. That's kind of why I tell people I'll probably be late to my own funeral because I'm trying to get too much done. So, you might have to mute. Somebody wasn't. Anyway, so to the extent that I make this statement for the first time tonight, I apologize to people, and I also am open to discussion on that item from Heath or when I say the applicant, it's not a true applicant, but it's Firelight's interest. And it does affect the development agreement to the extent that they've wanted nightly rentals in the development agreement. And I can see why, because that's been a part of their concept from the beginning. I can also say, in fairness to the city, that they maybe didn't take the heed some warnings that they were given about it, and so we're a little late. But having said what I've said, Heath, I'm open for you to try to convince me otherwise.
I don't have a real response to that. The distinction in my 20 years of doing municipal law, origination, where the source of law originates, I don't see where that makes a requirement for a affirmative recommendation. I have advised and I have sat through many city
council and planning commission meetings where I was not the attorney sitting, I was representing a property owner or developer. And I've heard that, I've never heard that distinction where the planning commission is a recommending body. They can recommend approval or denial. If they can't recommend approval, it is a denial. They can't basically do a pocket veto of a proposed ordinance by saying we need a lot of time to sit here and do it, and we're table. And because there was no recommendation, it can never go to the actual governing body who creates law in that municipality.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
I think something you said points out the conundrum. And frankly, other than before tonight, I would have said the same thing he said. Okay. But what you said, Heath, is the planning commission can make a recommend approval or recommend denial, right?
Mm-hmm.
But think about that for a second. Why would the planning commission, as the originator of an ordinance, recommend denial of the very ordinance they originated?
Maybe they're not the originator, it came from staff.
It can't come from staff. That's
No,
what
it-
I'm
it-
telling you.
it-
By statute, there are two ways for it to originate. There's only two.
But
How it came, and I've been involved in litigation back in Springdale, where because the ordinance didn't go through the planning commission for a recommendation, but city council just adopted an ordinance prepared by a professional planner. The entire zoning ordinance was invalidated some 20 years after it was adopted. Okay, and in a matter of legislative statutory construction, of course, will say that the legislature used the words advisedly. That they used the term recommendation in one respect, one time, and the word recommend another time. They used two different words. Well, because if it comes from the council down to the commission, then yes, the commission has the right to make a recommendation, up or down, about that. That's not the word used and not the language used when it comes and originates from the commission. When I say it originates from the commission, however it came to the commission, that's why I say, and I'm not trying to be insensitive, I don't care, frankly, if it came from Heath, from Firelight, from Stacy Eaton.
Well,
and I have to disclose, do I need to disclose Stacy's my friend? It is, if it came from planning commission, that's where it originated by statute. And the planning commission is not going to recommend to the council that they deny or disapprove or don't approve an ordinance that came from saying this is what we think should be done in the city. But don't adopt it. You know, this is what we recommend should be done, but don't adopt it. It doesn't track. That's why I think that the instruction that I apologize before I said it. I said, you're going to hear from me tonight something that's going to come out of left field.
So did the planning commission write the ordinance or not?
It doesn't matter.
What I'm saying is, in reality, what doesn't matter, who really wrote the ordinance?
Just,
It doesn't matter.
please.
This is not public comment time. This is not public comment time. This is a discussion between the attorneys and the city council.
It doesn't really matter. And I'm not being insensitive, and I'm not choosing not to respond. But the statute identifies only two ways. And if he drafted something on behalf of a client and submitted it to the planning commission, the fact that the planning commission picked it up, if you will, and acted upon it means that it came from the planning commission. That's what it means. They could have chosen not to pick it up and say, we're not going to put it on our agenda. Thanks for that draft. We're going to go mull it around for a month or two and figure it out and have some work meetings. But it didn't get it. That's not what happened. Okay. And I'm not saying the planning commission did anything wrong, not at all. I'm just saying I have to deal with where I'm at today. And I don't need to pass any judgment on anybody about where I'm at today. Not anybody. This is what I have. And this is how I have to advise the council. And frankly, it's not I would have been saying the same thing, recommend approval or denial. I would have said the same thing that Heath just said. Until I sat with it and thought about it, and again, it had to be a quick study on where are we at today and what have I got to deal with today and what am I going to advise the council.
So to me, it sounds like tonight there is no action to be taken.
Well, I'm still willing to give Heath some time because, frankly, I've come to my opinion, but I also know that I'm not always right, and I need to listen to others and see if they can impart some information to me that would cause me to have a different opinion, just like I did today. Because frankly, I was having a phone call with Ty because he was asking, hey, how's this work? And what are we going to do tonight? And I said, you know what? I need to look at the statutes a little bit more for tonight to know how the city can respond to the recommendation or lack of really from the commission that's now before the council. And so I dug into it, and that's why I said what I said tonight. So Heath, again, with all due respect and with knowing that Heath has been here for a long time, and knowing that whatever he says, if you're wondering who he's speaking on behalf of, he's speaking on behalf of the developer. And I'm here speaking on behalf of the city.
Thank you for that clarification so that Stacy knows. Two things. Oftentimes, the Planning Commission has an incredible role in small municipalities, and oftentimes planning commissions in small municipalities do the drafting of ordinances. Whether how they come up with the idea, whether it is whispered to them by a council, or they've sat through, or they've heard, or staff or city manager says, we really need to fix our parking ordinance. Planning Commission, will you take the stab at it? They do a lot of the drafting. I will tell you, in the vast majority of municipalities that have staff, meaning planning staff, and we now have a planning administrator, an assistant city manager, planning staff is who drafts ordinances, and they have it reviewed by the city attorney, and then it goes to the Planning Commission for the first time. Okay, so so the fact that staff, and in this municipality over the, let's see, I started in 2007. So over the 15 years I've represented the city, there are many times when staff have drafted ordinances, and it's come to me, and I said, this is a land use ordinance. It needs a recommendation from the Planning Commission. So the mere fact that where it came originated from, I would agree with you, Bruce. However, I think the point is that the council was waiting on conflict counsel's determination of Joey's question, whether or not it can simply by development agreement in an MPDO zone identify nightly rentals. And once we got what you referred to as the hard no, do you remember how many days it was before that ordinance was in front of you, Bruce? It was 3 days. It was 3 days.
I give credit.
So the slow turnaround had to possibly do partly with the slow hard no. But once it was done, this council was told there is a problem. And so this development agreement and this MPDO approval process that's come to the very conclusion, and this remaining issue, how do we deal with it? And I said, okay, I agree with you, Bruce. I agree with your opinion that in Talkerville City, we deal with nightly rentals by permits. It is not a conditional or a permitted use. in any zone in our ordinance. And although MPDO zones allow hybrids of uses, we can't point to any zone in this town and to say we want to use that use from that zone in our hybrid MPDO zone. So I said, okay, well, let's look at this. I don't want to destroy the concept of what we're trying to do to protect the older part of town. I said, what if we proposed a zoning and limited only to commercial? And you gave the idea of limiting it to a fixed location, which would be another way of protecting the bypass road. I did hear the number 200, but I threw in the idea, let's not make it so easy to obtain a nightly rental development overlay. Let's not let any person who's got 2 acres and can build 4 condominiums call it a nightly rental project. So let's put a minimum and a maximum on it so that it doesn't spring up everywhere, even in the older part of town too. But once we've done that, that seems to me like that was the direction from the council to bring it to the planning commission so that there could be clarity and conclusion on this very last issue. That did take some time to come to a head.
I'd never talked to the council about any of that. I was just spitballing with you as.
No, you were spitballing with the 2 council members who were appointed to negotiate the last 2 terms of the.
There was no recommendation from the council for me to do anything. It was just when this issue came up and I gave the hard no. And I would say, yes, it took a while. It gave conflict, yes. And I addressed the issue way back, but I didn't have to be the first guy to figure that out, okay? Because I figured out earlier than by me, say, it ain't gonna work, folks, but I did say that.
Procedurally, though. Technically it works, but we've got a procedure problem.
Well, in concept, I would say, my personal opinion, I've said this to Heath and maybe the council members that were there at that meeting. If I'm choosing to regulate nightly rentals, I would choose to regulate them by 2 processes, a zone and a permit. Okay? Because I can get a more effective regulation that way. And St. George City has done it that way with their resort zone overlay, okay? Zone and permit. And I think that approach, and it's a policy decision, okay? I'm not telling you guys what to do. You okay if I say guys?
Anytime.
Okay. That's okay. You can say you got. But from a personal opinion, and from even a recommendation in the city, if you're going to allow it, you've got to make a policy choice if you can allow this sort of thing. If you do, then I would suggest that what Heath has done and a zone for that is a really good start. What Heath has provided is a good start. It may not be the finished product, but I would prefer that people will know that I'm buying next to a nightly rental because it's zoned that way. They can't come and whine and complain to the council afterwards by saying, hey, did you know that there's nightly rentals over here? Yeah, I do. And so did you. Why did you know that? Because it's zoned that way. So don't complain. You know, which is different than nightly rentals regulated today, where I could have one pop up next to me and I'm like, what in the crap? I don't want to live in my house. I used to think, some of you said, I found my home in Talkerville. Maybe I did until the nightly rental moved in next to me, and maybe I didn't, okay? But at least if it's done by zone, there's actually, everybody knows. Everybody that buys in to that zone knows, and everybody that buys adjacent to that zone knows. And then you have the ability to regulate in ways that you don't. In that development, there's going to be one manager and only one manager for that entire development. So it's more like a hotel or more like your RVs ordinance where you got one RV owner that might have nightly rentals. And you think, oh, I feel some comfort with that because I know that there's one guy I can go to or gal and say, there's a problem here, fix it. And you can regulate that this way. So at the end of the day, if there's any idea that there's going to be nightly rentals in Firelight, and I would suggest that that idea has been broached from the beginning. And by zone and permit.
So in summary, our point is that to fix the conundrum, that was the culmination of the MPDO process and the development agreement, that essentially what was drafted by staff, but in his position as representing the developer, where it comes from is not necessarily an issue. I would have more issue with someone who has no concept of our ordinances and doesn't know all the background and the history and everything behind the current nightly rental permitting process and all those things, drafting it, than me drafting it. I drafted it, and in my opinion, it was from the council being given to the planning commission to consider. And so it needed a recommendation.
They didn't do that. There was no council meeting.
So if I
do it, it was spitballing at a meeting where two council members were authorized to help finalize a development agreement that couldn't be finalized on this point. The ordinance didn't exist. And so, but I think, I mean, again, I've represented and represent developers. I have drafted ordinances that I've then given to planning commissions of other counties and cities and said, hey, what you've got doesn't work real well. Here's this. But again, there's no fault at me for doing that. And I know people, and I'm not trying to defend Heath. I would say if Heath was sitting there.
I don't need your defense.
If he's sitting there with boards, or if he's sitting there with Ainsley, I'm saying the same thing. It makes no difference where that ordinance first was penned, because the difference is that the commission acted upon it in some fashion, and so it came from them. And that's what I deal with.
Because they didn't recommend it, the council now can't do it?
That's my opinion, is that the planning commission. I have too, and I would have given that opinion previously, but that's not how I read the statute. So I am saying that.
Real quick, so public this is Scott, sorry, Scott, this is your thing, so you can comment on this. So this is your,
Let me say, if you're going to comment, what I need you to do, someone has to tell me the difference between the word recommend and recommendation. There's two different words used in the statutes. And the word recommendation is used in the statute when it was from the council to the commission
If it was,
and back
if
up.
it would have started here, sent back, and they
Then they can
denied
make
it.
a recommendation. They can make a
Whatever it
recommendation.
is, we can still vote.
You can still vote. But when it comes from there, Scott, if you're going to talk to me about it, I need someone to give me an argument about why it says that this legislative body can only take action when the planning commission recommends to it.
An ordinance.
There is.
I'm not arguing with you on that at all.
But
I'm simply saying the source, if you drafted that as special counsel to the city.
it would depend on whether the planning commission asked me to do that, or the council told me to do it.
But you realize the conundrum and knowing the way to fix it for the council, so there can be a coalition if you drafted it. No, and the council knew that you were drafting it and had the city manager work with Joey, the planning commission chairman, and the agenda and have it put on the agenda. Where would it originate?
I would say if the council had in a meeting told me, and let me first step back and preface that, of why this answer I give daily, and I'll give the same answer that I give daily. As Heath knows, a lot of my work is with, we might say, post-development work. I work with homeowners associations a lot. And what I say to those I advise is, I've got the easy job because I don't do anything until a majority of the board tells me what to do. And until a majority of the board has told me what to do, I don't care what any one member of that board or two members of that board tell me. I only act when a majority of the board, of the quorum, tells me what to do. And the reason I say that is I want you to know that what I'm saying now isn't something I just concocted today to overcome what Heath is asking me. This is what I say daily. And I know I'm giving you heartburn, Scott, and I know Darcy's going to have heartburn, but
Staff develops ordinances all the time that don't get city council approval.
I hear you. And I've said I would have said that.
I know, and I think of that.
But if a majority of this council had said to me, Bruce, we need to fix this problem, go help staff with an ordinance, then it would have gone from council down to commission. And that's what we think happened. And I can understand why you think that happened. And in part, what I'm saying is, and I meant my apology sincerely to everybody in this room, to the planning commission, to the council. When I said what I'm going to say tonight will sound a little bit like it's coming out of left field, I meant that sincerely. I made an apology to everybody. But that apology is coming not from a position where I think I screwed up and I did something wrong, so I got to go apologize. I'm making the apology because this has come before this body at an 11 and a half hour, and has therefore come before me at an 11 and a half hour. And so I think I've done a pretty dang good job of coming up to speed and then trying to give advice, but it is all during that 11 and a half hour.
So, discussion on the city council, where are we at?
So Justin, Mayor,
You call him Justin.
thank you. I just don't want to offend you. So here's a couple things that I have. So my frustration, I don't even care where the stupid thing comes from. Quite frankly, I don't. What I care about is that I have this come from planning commission. I have no notes, no recommendation. I'm not even going in the recommendation. Everything that comes from planning commission, I get information with. I get, hey, we don't like this. We need to add this. Right. What about this? And then when it comes to me, I'm able to go through and go, okay, planning commission looked at it. These are the items that came up. They didn't like this. They would probably be okay if we added a couple items to it. That's where my hesitation is. And I feel like from planning commission, we didn't get that. I didn't get it. If the document's somewhere, Daisy, and we didn't get it, that's on us, but I don't think it exists. So when I went through this, I would like to be very clear. This is not an ordinance for Firelight. This ordinance affects every development in Talkerville. We have the lowland to the north, we have Firelight in the middle, and we have Litchfields at the bottom. It will affect every one of those in some sense. So though it came from Firelight, it is something that the city needs to take in place for the entire welfare of the city, period. And I'll argue that with you. So from that, when I went through this, I have some items. I guess probably, Bruce, what I need to do is, this item says discussion and possible action. So my discussion is, I think this needs to go back to planning commission. That needs to be directed.
From the city council?
From the council,
Okay.
which we'll need to talk about. But I went through this. I don't even think that this is that far off, to be quite frank. It's a good ordinance. There's lots of great things in it. There's some items that I'm like, okay, I'd like to clarify that, but I'm one set of eyes, and planning commission hasn't given me any feedback from their side. And I would be willing to share, obviously, what my notes are in this. I hate that that's where we're at. Quite frankly, we have an MPDO that was in place, and we knew this was coming, and I think we're late on all parts of that. And that may be on us more than anything, is the fact that it's been in there. Joey sounded the alarm from the beginning, knew that it was there, and we did not direct down, hey, we can fix this, fix right. The other thing I'd point out is everybody needs to understand that our short-term rental or nightly rental ordinance was written specifically for residential neighborhoods, period. It does not cover commercial. So in the big scope of things, you can go look at Arcadia and Ivins, you can go look at Desert Color. I like them. That's my opinion. In the right location, this type of object works, and I have no problem with that. I do have a problem thinking about, okay, I have a developer that has 1,700 acres. I look through some of the requirements. I'm like, okay, how do I make sure not all of our commercial is short-term rental or a resort style? Or does it even matter because the economy governs that? You know, you can't put in 600 dwellings and not have a convenience store for them. It just doesn't
Let
work.
me just interject with the MPDO. One thing you have is you can say it only exists here. So you can control that
Yeah,
through an
and
MPDO.
that's what I'm saying. Like, there is things in here that I think from a high level, the bulk of it's really good. I just don't like that I don't have anything from planning commission coming back to me saying, hey, here's some of the ideas that we have.
Well, and I think there's some things that frankly the council might say, oh, we would like additional control in this way. And let me just also, for clarification, say, let's assume that what I just said became the motion of the council. The way I look at it then is it's now coming, the table's been turned. It's now coming from the council to the planning commission. And the planning commission, when they recommend coming back up,
It's any type of recommendation.
any type,
Yeah.
when it comes back up, they could say, we hate this. And you can still act on it. And you can adopt it with changes, or choose not to adopt it because of what they say. But it doesn't matter what recommendation coming back up they give, because it's a recommendation as opposed to recommending.
Okay, so I'm looking for.
Bruce,
Yes, after.
do you have that do you have the statute that you're referring to?
Yeah, so you look at 10-9A 502 and 10-9A 503.
At 503?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
502 essentially is the planning commission up. 503 is the city council down.
I'm looking for motion. What do you guys, well, sorry, Joey.
If it's coming, if it does come back to the planning commission, which no issue with that, we would love all the input you can give.
Okay. From the council level. Okay.
And maybe there's a work meeting and
All the, conditions in the permitting process.
right. And I sent today to Joey and to Ty, not everybody else because I just didn't have time, but I've been in communication with them. I mean, I've spent several hours today coming up to speed with this. I sent what St. George City has in their overlay zone, and it adds a few things that may not be necessary here, but something for you to consider. And so after I can send that to you, and you can send it to all the council, so you can at least see what your neighboring city did. And you might like, but they didn't do what is proposed here, is that it's only along a certain stretch of road. And frankly, I think preserve the old part of town. It's good to tie it, primary access off the parkway. That's my opinion. So my apologies again that I've said a lot, but I think I had to say what had to be said.
Appreciate it.
If it goes back to the planning commission, is there another public hearing
Yes,
that takes place?
yes.
Okay, number one. And Joey, you're asking for recommendations from the city council for you to take into consideration?
Well, I think what it should happen is the council should call these recommendations to me, and then I kind of tweak what Heath has done, frankly, and then we take that form of thing and give it to the planning commission for them to then make recommendations on, so that it's clear that this is coming from the top down.
There's two ways too, so we gotta wait for the planning commission, if it comes in this meeting, then we gotta, we have time for public notices, and we don't, so there's a meeting, so it would be a discussion item only. Then we would have a draft at the next meeting.
For a
And
public
special
hearing.
meeting would be 2 weeks after that, so
Meaning that it would come to the council with a recommendation in its second meeting.
And again, I don't care what the planning commission recommends, at least procedurally, because that's my job, is look at procedure. They can recommend best thing since sliced bread, or they can say it sucks, for lack of a better term. And the council can still decide how we want.
Might be better to look at what your guys' input is also with the St. George option.
And I reviewed what you sent me, and actually, what was interesting is most of the things in that revolved around amenities. And when amenities were to be built, they identified amenities, they identified options and when they came in, but I was intrigued by the fact that was what St. George was.
And St. George tied the level of amenities on the number of units,
Yep.
basically, so more units, more of it.
Yeah, and they had a little chart in there, and I'm not even
Which-
saying
which-
that's the right
Which
way.
makes some sense, you know, it's, if the developer says, oh, one of our amenities is a pool, and see that little dinky kiddie pool, that's gonna serve 500 people, it's like, nah.
Well, and the other thing they identified in there that I did like is they tied it to the fact that before 50% of the units were completed, you had to have the amenities for those units completed, all of which I think are fairly normal for what's going on, and a good thing for the city.
Yeah.
So,
So are you saying we should?
well, I think first of all, what we need to do is we need to make a motion on the item that was before
Item
us.
3.
And then we need to give direction to planning commission
To
on
the
what
attorney
to move
and
forward.
then to planning commission. So I'm looking for a motion. Councilman Greenhurst.
Well, at this point, I'm done talking.
I don't know about that. I can't make a motion.
Well, there is. I would think a possible motion is that they're not gonna take action item on number 3 because it's not properly before them, because it didn't come recommended from the commission.
I'm new here.
So,
as mayor.
Your sales pitch was your sole experience.
So, do we just say, okay, Bruce, we'd like to take recommendations of you?
So let me throw out 2 possible
Yes.
motions, and I'm not making any of them, okay, but something for you to think about. One motion is to not take action on item number 3 because it's not properly before council, because it was not recommended by the planning commission. That's one. Second would be that the council is directing me to work with staff to prepare an ordinance that the council wants this nightly rental development issue addressed.
Whether it be this and or the ordinance.
Well,
whatever.
It'll be nominationable. Yes, it could be something even in addition to that, but it's, the thing I'm really concerned about is the council is telling me that they want me to go fix nightly rental developments.
In a commercial zone.
Commercial zone, and I'm gonna go about fixing that, and frankly, I'm gonna take what he started with, work with some, other stuff, and I'm gonna get it to the planning, to the commission.
I'm going to slaughter the first one. I motion that we don't take action on item number 3 because it did not come before us appropriately.
I second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Chuck?
Me again, or Chuck wants to.
Chuck, up or down? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
You say aye.
Your mic.
There you go. You're muted again after. There you go.
Don't blow.
You got a thumbs up. All right, it passes 4-0.
I actually think we can do it without making a motion.
I agree.
We need to pass this to
Right.
council.
We don't have a
Council, you
have a
need to take
motion,
full-
exactly. So at this time, as the mayor, I'd like for our conflict council to work with staff and work through our commercial nightly rental agreement.
And so just to be clear and be consistent with what I said earlier, and I know Ty said no motion, I want to know if there's anybody on the council that objects to that direction.
You gonna vote on that, or?
Because
Yeah,
if
it's not
if I had 3 people
Yeah.
object to it, then I would consider it
Okay.
as not being directed. But since no one's objecting to what you're saying, Mayor, I'll take your direction.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we're moving on to,
Well, next thing, I think the council can give Bruce some direction on some of the
Yes.
things that we're concerned about.
yes, we want comments from council and staff and planning commission and Bruce to work together.
Right, and so if I can get, Ty just give me his.
Right.
If the council, to be timely, I need to know when it is the council wants me to have.
I would love to have it before their next meeting, just to, so they can look at it and then get it on there 2 weeks from then, or whenever their next meeting is.
So can I ask of council that before the weekend, I get
Absolutely.
comments from council?
Can I give you mine right now?
Sure.
I just.
But are you gonna give them to me verbally, or are you gonna give them in writing? Because I want them in writing. I do.
Okay.
Because the only length of this meeting, and I'll do much better in writing than I can verbally.
After, do you have something?
Certainly no.
Our connection is not good.
Sound like you're underwater after.
Hold on. Dave? Yeah. This is gonna go back to planning commission and we're gonna work to develop it. We need to be clear that this will not be on the next planning committee.
It'll be on the next planning commission meeting for discussion,
For
not for public
discussion,
hearing.
not for public hearing, not for.
Okay.
action.
But you might want to make certain you count days, so we can get it timely.
So the next time, I just want to be clear that the next time council will see this ordinance will be in December.
No November.
Our second meeting in November.
Well, you won't. No, if you have to do a public, okay, we're gonna need some direction on if we're gonna require a public hearing at city council level or only at planning commission.
Yeah.
Because if this is gonna be a discussion item at next week's planning commission, then it will not be on for a public hearing at planning commission until November. And then it won't come back to council. If it requires a public hearing at the council level, it will not be on for a public hearing until council the first week of December.
After a public hearing of the planning commission.
So and if they're saying that we don't have to have a public hearing for the city
Okay.
council, just.
That was our question, and we need clarification of that right up front, right now. Okay, great.
Just planning commission.
Planning commission only.
Great. So it'll be on November, and then you'll see this at your third city council meeting in November, if it comes with a recommendation from planning commission.
Yes.
Okay, we got it. Thank you.
Right. Okay, is there any more discussion on the items that we didn't take action on?
So.
All right. All right, so real quick, let's do calendar events. So Rachel is planning an awesome Halloween festival on Monday, October 31st.
Yep.
So it says church parking lot. Are we doing Center Street, Ash Street Drive, and Pecan Street?
Yes, we're looking at blocking off surrounding streets. It'll be a whole group effort. We will have porta potties so that there's no church entry. It's just parking lot usage, and we will get traffic control through all of it in the
We're
parking.
gonna do a traffic study.
Afton put in, I think we had something, I don't know.
I'll draw you up a
It's,
picture.
thank you,
I got
thank
it.
you.
All
But yeah,
right, we have a farmer's market coming up on the 15th of October. I would recommend everybody show up. Those are kind of fun. They're neat.
this is the last one too.
This is the last one for the year, and I hopefully will do this again next year. I do enjoy them. We got the Turkey Talk Trail Run on Thanksgiving Day, which is November 24th, Center Street Park at 10 a.m.
I'm unmuted.
Take note, the booths are free.
For
time
this
around.
October.
Okay, farmer's market booths are free. Perfect. December 1st and 2nd. What do we hear?
It's
Cliche?
a crush.
What is
It's a
it?
crush. We're looking to get City Hall, we're going to decorate it really beautiful in white, and we're looking for all locals to display a nativity, if they have a nativity scene, and we'll just have that all loaded. We'll have it all
In the town hall.
in this,
Historical
yeah,
town
over there,
hall.
the historical town hall. And then on Saturday, which we'll have open hours, it'll be manned, and then we'll do the tree lighting and a couple songs.
On the 3rd.
Quick on the 3rd. Yeah, it won't.
No program, just a couple songs and some
Couple songs.
caroling, I hope, right?
Yes,
Okay.
hot chocolate. Here we yep.
So and then that goes for 1st and 2nd through the 3rd, and then the Christmas tree lighting is on Saturday, the 3rd at 6 p.m. So is there anything else, City Council, you bring forward this evening? Attorney Snow? Bruce?
I think I said,
All right, this meeting is adjourned at 8:17.